Hello, my fellow Leadership 100 members. I'm sorry I cannot be there with you in person. However, we still live in a COVID world, and what do they say? Better to be safe and cautious. And that's why I'm in New York, and you're in beautiful Phoenix enjoying the nice weather. Anyway, I wish you all a beautiful weekend, a productive weekend. I'd like to thank Jim Logothetis for the great work he has done this year. Still under difficult times, but Leadership 100 continues to march forward with their great support of the ministries, of the church, the theological school, and everything else that they do. I'd also like to thank Paulette Poulos, my sister from Brooklyn, the Three Harricks community, for all that she has done, for being a great friend to me and one of my mentors, and being one of the great assets that we have in the Greek American community. What I'm here to do today is to talk about my good friend Carl Hollister, my brother Ahepan, past Supreme President of AHEPA, current board member of AHEPA, Archon, Archdiocesan Council, Patriarch Bartholomew Endowment Fund, St. Photios National Shrine. There's a ton of stuff more that I'm probably leaving out, but I choose not to read it all. It's there for you if you'd like to. Carl is everywhere, providing help, providing support, guidance, anything he can. Carl Hollister never says no. And that's why there's so many titles and so many different organizations that he belongs to. And they're so fortunate to have him and have a person of his character. Carl is a military person, somebody who's done over 20 years in active duty and in reserves, special ops, Bronze Star recipient, a wonderful person. I mean, when they talk about people putting their name on the line or money on the line, Carl has put his name on the line, his money on the line, and his life on the line. And that says a lot about the person that he is and the type of person who, when he believes in something, there is no limit to how far he will go and what he will do. As my wife likes to remind me, behind many great men, there are usually greater women. And the same can be said for Carl with his wife, Cynthia, who is equally philanthropic, beautiful lady, and obviously supportive of all these programs as well. Because if she wasn't, she wouldn't be dealing with him being away so much, giving so much, and doing so much. So I'm pretty sure it's a team effort. They have a beautiful family, a daughter, Alexandra, that I don't think is with them this weekend because she's busy working. But I would advise you guys to look her up because you'll probably be asking her for financial assistance in the future because she's really doing gangbusters in the financial world. Carl, you deserve all the accolades that you get. You are one of the finest human beings that I have met in my life. A brother Ahepan, as I said, brother Archon, a person who has laid his life on the line for the country that we live in and call home America, but who loves so much and believes so much in his roots, in our roots, in our motherland that we call Greece. Please don't hold it against Carl when you hear him say Koulourakia or Papu, because Carl is a Greek down to the core, a Greek with the ethos of the Greeks of 1940, who didn't believe in quit, who believed in giving everything that they do in life 100%, and loves both Greece and America down to his core. May God continue to bless you, Carl and Cynthia and Alexandra, for all the good that you do in this world, for all the programs that you support, and for all the lives that you've helped. Axios Neise Panda. Love you, my brother.
Your Eminence, Archbishop Elpidiforos, venerable and esteemed clergy, members of Leadership 100, Jim and Paulette, my brothers and sisters in Christ, thank you so much for the privilege and the honor to be with you this morning at the 36th Annual Leadership 100 Conference. The work that leadership does is indispensable to the success and the significance of the Archdiocese. All the ministries of the Archdiocese owe a debt of gratitude to Leadership 100. We heard Deacon Anton and Father Nicholas talk about the great support that they get from Leadership 100. I can tell you that Cynthia and I have taken it upon ourselves as well to help. We can't do everything, but we've been helping OVC. We support OVC. I think it's a fantastic organization. I encourage everyone to get involved. I'm going to try to make this as productive and thoughtful as possible. Because today, my goal is to share some thoughts on leadership, distance, and direction. I'm going to be highlighting key leaders in a few different vocations, but with an emphatic focus on the leaders in our faith. I also am going to try to make that bridge where I can attempt to identify similarities of missions between the U.S. Special Operations Command that covers the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, and the missions of the church. I don't want you to be shocked when I say that. Our most successful operations and special operations are those that are non-kinetic, when we do not use lethal force. The church does not use lethal force, so I'm going to focus on those areas. Although my yaya used to use a kutala on my head to make sure I was on church on time, I don't think that was necessarily lethal. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about leadership because this is the Leadership 100 Conference. You are all leaders here. I see Yaya Eleni, who has done so much across the country in Chicago for many years. I see Phil Frangos in the back and his lovely wife Tula and what they have done up in Michigan. I see Luke Caricos. There's tremendous leaders in this room. And we've got the New Jersey Mafia with Andy Zachariadis. But I want to go over some key attributes when I think of a leader based on my experiences and what I've witnessed. And that's why I want to talk about distance and direction. For clarity, let's suppose that distance is not a measurement of miles, yards, or inches, but rather distance is the preparation we go through to accomplish goals, milestones, and objectives. It is the tasks and discipline we do to fulfill our objectives. Let me give you a few examples. Let's think of prayer, fasting, following Scripture, tithing, staying in communion with our church. You have to do all these things to be in our church. We don't get to pick one or two. It's not a smorgasbord. When you're going the distance, you're following it through. Think of the movie Rocky. Think of the prize fighter, what he has to go through to be able to go the distance in the fight, the training, the preparation. I think of my own training that I went through in the Army. I think of the training of many brothers and sisters of arms and what they've gone through in their different militaries to be able to be ready. That's going the distance. That's the preparation that's important. The reason I want to think of it in this way is that we can better understand the leaders that have gone before us, as well as those of us who are providing the key leadership we so desperately seek today. On direction, that one is almost self-evident. Where are we going? Every leader is responsible for setting direction. Great leaders take input. We have multitude of different organizations tied to the church. But we have one leader that takes the input from those organizations, and it's still the responsibility of the Archbishop to set the direction. Make no mistake, His Eminence also gets his marching orders from Constantinople and his support from Constantinople. But direction is set at the head. There are times that direction isn't always linear. You're not always going point A to point B. Try driving in New York City with Google Maps, trying to go Archon weekend from the hotel to the church. Turn left on this street. That street's closed. Google reroutes you. You end up going different directions to get to your objectives. So don't always think of direction as being a straight line. There's many paths that we may end up crossing to get to our ultimate objectives. So with that, Let's begin. At first, I want to say I'm especially delighted to see Deacon Anton and his lovely bride, Anastasia. Anastasia was an intern of mine. She helped mentor our daughter, and we have a very close affection for one another. I want you to know that Deacon Anton did a lot of extra training before he became a deacon. Whenever he is assigned a parish, he is going to be overlooking at the church festival who is cooking the arnit. He knows how to do it. But I love you both. I want to make that clear. Okay, you can't really get into this discussion without understanding, where does a lot of the philosophy come from in leadership? And let me surprise you. It's from Greece. It's from Socrates. It's from Aristotle. It's from Alexander the Great. It's from Plato. It's from Isocrates. These aren't just platitudes. Let's take a few of these and identify what they mean. If I think of what Socrates is saying if you don't have discipline yourself, don't expect others to follow you with discipline. Aristotle is basically saying everyone has the opportunity to lead at some point. Everyone is going to come up with that 5 minutes of fame or that 5-minute great idea that everyone needs to rally behind. On my teams, when we were deployed in Afghanistan, we didn't wear rank. I told them all, we have pay grades. That's it. I was ultimately in charge. But my sergeants, my team leaders, they could lead on different missions. I had to follow them. And Alexander the Great, there's nothing impossible to him who will try. That reminds me of Winston Churchill and his great speech, shortest speech ever written at Westminster. Never, never, never give up. It was in response to when they defeated the Nazis and ended the Blitzkrieg. We're going to have a really great example of the first one from Plato. And we've got a great one from Isocrates, a great example, sitting in the very front. But I want you to think of distance and direction all throughout. Why is this up here? I'm going to tie this into distance and direction. I love to fly fish for steelhead trout. This is on Elk Creek in Erie, PA. You have to know the distance to flow your fly, and you have to know the direction on how to mend your fly line so that fly gets right in front of the trout. I would have shown something about golf, but I've never hit a ball that went the distance I wanted or the direction I wanted. Let me get into special operations. This is not classified. I will give you the website that you can go and look at this yourselves. But basically, there's a few areas that we operate in, whether it's direct action, special reconnaissance, unconventional warfare, foreign internal defense, civil operations, counterterrorism, or MISO. Let's take some of these apart. Direct action, that is tip of the spear, and that is purely kinetic. Church doesn't do that. But we do special reconnaissance. We're always looking for those new leaders, such as Deacon Anton. We're always looking for places to build a new church, to strengthen our core. When I think of unconventional warfare, I do see a similarity. It's in the podcasts. It's in the social media. We've never done that. We've never done anything like that before. How do we outreach to our people? How do we outreach to the youth? We have to go to the means and the media that they use. And that's unconventional in our historic thought. Now look at foreign internal defense. That's how we protect against lawlessness and insurgency. Well, the church does that as well. The church teachings keeps us in line. We need to be in one communion. When I think of military information support, of course, back in the day when I was there, it was just called PSYOP, but now they've changed it all up. Basically, it's just targeting messaging. In this photograph, you got 3 American veterans. On the left, that's John Calamos, ace pilot, war hero, outstanding businessman, outstanding churchman. In the middle, that happens to be Master Chief Rick Kaiser, who was Master Chief for SEAL Team 6 for 16 years. After he retired, he was the one that went and planned the raid on bin Laden. Anyway, this was at a Blue Dream event supporting Triton House as a ministry. So I want to talk about Lou Holtz. And why Lou Holtz? Here's an individual that has been successful everywhere he was. He started as a defensive back coach for Ohio State University under Woody Hayes. In 3 years, William and Mary won their conference and went to a bowl game. After William and Mary, he went on to Arkansas. In 3 years, they won their conference and were in a bowl game. After Arkansas, he went to Minnesota and had the infamous Notre Dame clause put in because he wanted to get the Notre Dame job, but he didn't get it. But in case it opened up, he'd get it again. Took Minnesota, they won the Big Ten. They lost their bowl game, but they did go to a bowl. Lou Holtz has the greatest one-line inspirational quotes of anyone you'll ever meet. And I implore you, if you get the time, you need to look up Lou Holtz and some of his quotes. Here's some of the more serious ones that he had. He's just a dynamic individual. When I got back from Afghanistan, and I knew I was no longer going to be being deployed, going overseas, I wanted to get serious about some other things. I wanted to get serious about making a few bucks. I wanted to get serious about getting involved with organizations. So Cynthia and I were fortunate enough in January 2006 to have dinner with Coach Holtz. And I asked him, I said, Coach, what do I need to do to be successful? And he said, you're asking the wrong question. I said, how do you mean? He said, you need to ask, how can you be significant? We're all here to be significant, and significant means making a positive impact on other people's lives on a daily basis. That's what the church does. That's what AHEPA Housing does. That's what Leadership 100 does through supporting the different ministries. That was just a different way of looking at success. He told me straight up, if you're looking for success, you're looking for self-gratification. You're looking for a big car. You're looking for a house and a bank account. And I'm thinking, okay, and that's not necessarily bad. But he made the point, we're here to make positive impacts on other people's lives. And then it dawned on me. I've seen some of this before. And I'll never forget the last thing he said. You have to be willing to go the distance. And this distance and direction, it wasn't something that is something I always thought about. It's things I've heard over time. If you go to basic training and you're going through a mortar range, mortars are coming in, your platoon leader yells out a distance and a direction. You're going to rally at a safe spot. Distance and direction has come into play a lot more meaning for me over time. Anyone recognize this particular nun? That's correct. So in the early 90s, I was doing work for the U.S. government, a FID mission inside of Guatemala, and we came across, we were working with the CAIBEL, they're the Guatemalan Special Forces, and we were trying to strengthen their ability to work with the local police and the national police to stop kidnapping young children. I came across this Mother Inez in Guatemala City. You would have thought it would have been the safest spot where the orphanage was that she had. It was right next to the police station. It was members of the police department that were part of the human trafficking. Those people are no longer doing that. Over time, she moved the orphanage out of the city. And then she got into a fight with the government. The government wanted to take back land that was granted to her. She never stopped. Her ultimate goal and the direction she wanted to be was to provide a future for the children of Guatemala. And what did she do? She moved from the orphanage, moved to another location, built a housing complex because the government wouldn't allow her to have an orphanage, and then set up a university on it for the children that had been at the orphanage years ago. Mother Inez is the strongest woman, most determined woman I've ever met or heard of in my life as to what she was able to accomplish. It's just incredible. It's her focus, her willingness to go the distance for those kids, and maintaining the same direction at all times. You think of other great leaders, how can you not think of Archbishop Yakovos? How can you not think of Selma? The only religious leader to join Martin Luther King on the march in Selma. I would argue that was a direct action, very similar to what we would do in special operations. That was a straight poke in the eye to the rest of the faiths saying, get on board, you're on the wrong side of what's right. There were many other examples of the greatness of leadership of Archbishop Yakovos, bless his soul. It's just, this one stands out, and this is the one most people remember because it was on the front cover of Time. And it's just, Life magazine, Signomi. Now, I've met 3 incredible leaders. One in the military, 2 in religion. His All Holiness exemplifies what a true leader is. I want you to go back and think for a moment. Do you remember that 60 Minutes piece that was done on His All Holiness? If you go into it at 1:12 to 2 minutes and 42 seconds, Bob Simon's asking him, what is the right title? How do I address you? Do I call you your All Holiness? Do I call you Ecumenical Patriarch? What do I call you? And His All Holiness responds, Bartholomew. The title is His All Holiness, but for me, it's Bartholomew. Leadership isn't just about having a commanding presence, it's about being humble in front of those you serve. People want to follow leaders like His All Holiness. And think of this. On a daily basis, he's basically facing some attack from Erdogan. You know, we've seen what's happened to Hagia Sophia, but yet, no matter what happens, His All Holiness is always out there in the forefront, providing that leadership, that guidance. He was the first of the major churches, leaders, to go and support the children of the Ukraine. He went to Poland to see them. He has been outspoken on the atrocities that have occurred over there. He is a true leader. True leaders do something that a lot of us don't do, whether it's in business, sports, whatnot. And that is, you train the next leader. When I think of the challenges that Archbishop Elpidophoros faced when he came in here, we had St. Nicholas. That was going nowhere. We had the financial issues at the Archdiocese. That was going nowhere. We had significant problems in the school, Hellenic College. We had problems in many of the ministries. How many of you would raise your hand and say, I want to go to a company that's losing in every division, losing money in every division, doesn't have the support right now of its shareholders? Who wants to go into that job and take the lead? Well, I'm here to tell you, I've met generals, I've met princes, I've met kings, I've met presidents. I've met hierarchs. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, to have Archbishop Elpidophoros, and it behooves all of us. It behooves all of us to go the distance and do what it takes to make sure we go the direction he now has us set on. With that, I'll open it up to questions. I know there's not going to be a rebuttal on what I just said, but if there's any other questions.
Okay, I'll do a simple one. Born in Cleveland, live in Cincinnati. Which team do you root for?
Okay, so I'm an Ohio State Buckeye fan. My wife, Cynthia, from Pittsburgh. Growing up, that caused challenges early years of our marriage between the Browns and the Steelers. They're big rivalries. I've given in now. I'll wear gold and black on occasion. Okay, since I have an audience, I am going to tell you one story, and then I'll take another question. And this is a story about my wife, how wonderful she is. And she's always thinking of me. I'm in Afghanistan. I met Chapman. That was my Bob. And I would get to talk to Cynthia on occasion. And she goes, how are you doing? Well, great, it's wonderful here. Yeah. She goes, well, how are you holding up spiritually? I go, you know, I have the books Father Christakis gave me. A parish priest had given me some books, and I had the works of Bishop Callisto Square, and I had some other things. So Cynthia asked, are you getting a chance to see a chaplain? I said, well, they have this non-denominational, and it's not doing it for me. So I went twice, and it wasn't like we had a lot of downtime anyway. So I don't know what happens. We're coming up towards Lent starts. Now all of a sudden we're up. It's going to be Lazarus Saturday. It's Thursday before Lazarus Saturday of 2005. We come back from an operation. Again, we're our rank. We don't have any of our stuff on. We come back, and I'm sitting out front, and I had a beautiful view, which is kind of interesting. Maybe segue into that. I'm sitting out, having a cup of coffee, having a cigar. We had just gotten back from 10 days of doing something. And I'm looking up, I'm like, why are there two Apache helicopters and a Black Hawk helicopter coming on my fob? And I'm thinking, do I have to brief some 1-star, 2-star, whatever? Black Hawk lands. The Apaches are flying around, providing security. And here comes this soldier. Bump, 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 bump. He's got a rucksack. He's got a case. He's got a bag. Bump, bump, bump. I go, can I help you? He goes, yes, I'm looking for Commander Hollister. I go, who are you? I'm Chaplain Anderson. Why do you need to see Hollister? I'm the only Orthodox chaplain in the theater. I go, okay, I'm Hollister. He goes, can we get into a SIPR net? So a SIPR is our email communications, and it's a secure. There's NIPR, non-secure, and then SIPR secure. So again, go into our TOC, our Tactical Operations Center, gets down. He's showing me this email chain. This email chain goes from Cynthia's email address through family support group to three-star General Kensinger, at Fort Bragg, Army Special Operations Command, CG, all the way to CENTCOM to General Abazade. 4 stars. Thank God, General Abazade's wife is Syrian Orthodox. The email chain comes back down from Abazade to Kensinger, make it happen. So I've got this Chaplain Anderson, and I'm like, this is fantastic. I go, Chaplain, what would you like to do? He goes, well, we're doing Divine Liturgy tomorrow morning. He goes, I want you to get all the Orthodox on your fob, and we're going to meet. Okay. So where I'm at Chapman. You can look this up. It's public. It's also in the book, Counterinsurgency, Eastern Afghanistan, 2004-2008, blah, blah, blah. There's a little bit about what we did. Anyway, so I go into the CIA area, and I'm like, hey, Cobb, the chief of base, I go, do you have anyone over here that's Orthodox? He goes, I don't know if they're Orthodox. Do you have anyone Ukrainian, Ethiopian, Greek, Russian, Lebanese, whatever? Oh, yeah. Hey, Jack is, Stonewall is. Okay, get them over here at 7 o'clock. And I go over to TF Red, go see the Rangers. I'm like, who over here is Orthodox? I don't know. Well, is anyone here Russian, Ukrainian, Greek, Lebanese? I'm doing the spiel. I have to go to 4 sections on this fob. Thank goodness the fob wasn't real big. Finally, I've got 12 people. We had Divine Liturgy. Next to being at Vespers, at St. Photius Shrine, in the shrine, with His Eminence, that's the most spiritual service I've been at. And I owe that to my wife.